America was built on stories of impossible rises, stories where people arrived with nothing, and within a lifetime reached the very top of power. Few names represent that dream better than Kennedy. Their ancestors came from Ireland in the 19th century, part of the great wave of immigrants who crossed the ocean with little more than hope. They were not aristocrats. They were not born into power. They started where millions of others started, in crowded cities. Hard work and long days that promised nothing except survival. And yet, in just a few generations, the Kennedy name became one of the most powerful in the United States. Money came first, then influence, then politics, and finally the presidency. To many, it looked like the perfect American story, but to others, it looked like the beginning of something darker, because almost as soon as the family reached the peak, tragedy began to follow them. Not once, not twice, but again, and again, and again. Over the years, people started to notice a pattern: deaths, accidents, assassinations, crashes, illnesses, sudden endings that seemed to strike the family with unusual cruelty and frequency. John F. Kennedy, the President of the United States, was assassinated in 1963. His brother, Robert Kennedy, was assassinated just 5 years later. Other members of the family died in wars, plane crashes, and mysterious accidents. John F. Kennedy, Jr., often called the Prince of America's political royalty, died in a plane crash in 1999. To historians, these events can be explained by politics, risk, and coincidence. The Kennedys lived dangerous lives. They were constantly in the public eye. They flew often. They moved in a world where enemies existed. But to the public, it began to look like something else: a shadow, a curse, a price that had to be paid. People started to whisper that the family's rise was too fast, too perfect, too powerful to come without a cost. Old myths returned in modern form. The idea that great power always demands a sacrifice. Some began to say that the Kennedys had entered a world where normal rules no longer applied. A world of hidden agreements, silent expectations, and invisible boundaries. A world where influence was not just earned, but managed, controlled, and according to legend, guarded by forces no one ever sees. In conspiracy culture, these forces are often described as secret circles, hidden elites, or ancient orders. Some people use the word Masons as a symbol, not as a proven organization behind events, but as a metaphor for closed doors and untouchable power. There is no evidence for this, no documents, no proof. But legends do not need proof to survive. They only need patterns and fear. According to these dark theories, the Kennedy family didn't just rise in politics and money. They stepped into a game where the price of influence was obedience to rules no one ever wrote down. And in this story, the tragedy begins not when they enter that world, but when allegedly they try to leave it. John F. Kennedy is often placed at the center of this modern myth. Some believe that he wanted to change the system, that he wanted to reduce the power of institutions that operated in the shadows, that he wanted to pull control back into the open. Again, these are theories, not facts, but in the language of legend, this is where the story turns dark, because in those same legends, trying to change the rules of a hidden game is the most dangerous move of all. And then there is Marilyn Monroe, one of the most famous women in the world, a symbol of beauty, fame, and tragedy. And according to history, someone who moved dangerously close to the center of power. Marilyn knew people at the very top. She moved in circles where politics, fame, and influence mixed behind closed doors. Over the years, rumors grew that she knew too much, that she had seen too much, that she had heard things that were never meant to leave private rooms. Officially, her death was ruled a probable suicide, but even today, many people feel that the story never truly settled. The timing, the circumstances, the silence that followed. In the world of conspiracy and dark legend, Marilyn becomes part of the same shadow that followed the Kennedys, a bright star that burned too close to something dangerous and vanished. Once again, there is no proof, only questions. And yet, when people look at the long list of tragedies connected, directly or indirectly, to this circle of power, they cannot help but feel uneasy. A family rises from nothing to the top of the world. Power gathers around them. Fame surrounds them. And then, one by one, the losses begin. Was it just coincidence? Or is this how the human mind tries to explain chaos, by turning it into a story about curses, shadows, and hidden prices? Some believe the Kennedy family was simply unlucky. That history is cruel, and statistics can look like destiny when enough time passes. Others believe something followed them. Not a person, not an organization, but an idea, a myth, a dark echo of the ancient warning that no one climbs that high without leaving something behind. In the end, this is not a story about facts and files. It is a story about how we, as people, look at power and fear it. Because when tragedy repeats itself often enough, we stop seeing coincidence. We start seeing patterns. And when the patterns involve fame, influence, and death, we start seeing shadows. Maybe the Kennedy curse is only a modern legend. Or maybe it is a reminder that some names once written into history can never escape the weight of the stories that follow them. Not because someone is chasing them, but because power itself always casts a very long shadow.